Yeah, not too bad. It's fun.
You can go ahead.
I asked Giancarlo, and he said you could probably provide better insight. But were there any writers that you approached initially, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to contribute to season one?
Oh, that's a really good question. There were some, and I'm trying to now rack my brain to think of some. Who did we approach? Everybody wanted to do it. No one said no, but there were some people who were like, I can't do it for like another 3 months because they were busy on another project, and we just couldn't wait. So um, I can't. You know what? I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I should have looked that up because there were some people who just I just couldn't do it for time reasons, unfortunately. Yeah.
I had asked a question about going from a background of having, old television where you would have a new episode coming out every week. Did you have to accommodate for the fact that now it's streaming? I know he had mentioned, Giancarlo had mentioned that it's kind of like blocking yourself off in a room and not knowing what the reaction was. Do you kind of feel the same way?
A little bit. I've been lucky enough to have two shows out recently. So one was Invincible, where we did a weekly release, and we dropped 3 episodes at once, and we did a weekly release after that, and then Diabolical, which all came out at once. I think Diabolical had to all come out at once because they were shorts. It wouldn't really make sense to just give out 12 minutes a week. But I actually prefer a weekly release schedule. I think it gives you time to think about the episodes as an audience member, lets that kind of sink in a little bit. And as someone who works on the shows, I would rather have the show come out over the course of a month or 2 months rather than it's 2 years of work in some cases, and then it's dropped, and then you can watch it all in one day. Seems kind of cruel. So I prefer a weekly release, but also I think people should be able to watch it however they want to watch it.
And you talked about the 12-minute runtime. Was that always your plan? I know it fits well for say episode one, which is very Warner Brothersy. But did you want to maintain that short time window for all the other episodes as well?
Yeah, we had to because we knew we wanted to do 8 episodes, and we only had about 10 months to do it. So they couldn't be much longer than that, or we just wouldn't have been able to produce them in time. So the idea was always around 11 to 12, 13 minutes. We didn't have to deliver them specifically at any time, but we knew that it had to be around 11 to 12 to just get them done in time. And it seemed to be a good amount of time that you could tell a story that had a start, a middle, and end, was satisfying and emotional, but wasn't too long that we wouldn't be able to get them all finished in time.
When you were working on Invincible, is that because it's a very similar-esque type of thing with superheroes? There's a bad side to them. Did you have the boys in your background, and you were thinking, oh man, as the show was coming out, did you have them in the back of your mind thinking, I would love to do something like that?
Oh yeah, I was a huge fan of The Boys before I was even when I was early in stages working on Invincible. The first season of The Boys came out, I loved that show. So when they came to me and was like, hey, would you like to do a spin-off of The Boys? I was like, absolutely, I would love to do that. So that was it was a huge treat for me because I approached it just as a fan of the series. So being able to sort of add a little bit of do my own kind of spin on it was a huge treat.
Was it always going to be an anthology series of standalone shorts, or was there a possibility it could have been something just a continuation?
No. Early on, this for Diabolical was always going to be like an animatrix. It was always going to be a selection of different short films, basically in the world of The Boys. That was the idea from the start.
Oh, very cool. You have anything?
That's also okay.
Oh man, I just had it. Probably getting the highest profile from the series is the type of writers you attract to do episodes. But from your standpoint, what animation studios would you have liked to work with?
That's a really good question. So we did the main show with Titmouse, who's a Los Angeles-based animation studio. They do Vox Machina and Fairfax and a million other shows, and they're awesome. And then we did most of the episodes out with other animation studios overseas. So we were very lucky to work with about 5 or 6 different studios. I always loved Madhouse's work. They're out of Japan. They did Trigun, which is an old anime. I'm trying to think who else I would have loved to have done. It's more about very specific directors who I would have liked to work with, like Robert Valley, Sylvain Chomet, Gendy Tartakovsky would would be great to have those guys to work with them.
Did the writers come with their own ideas of who they wanted to be voice actors, or was that something you guys were able to just go on?
In some cases, they did. Sometimes they had some ideas. I always tried, if the writer was also an actor, which in our case a lot of them were, so like Andy Samberg, Aquafina, Elliot Glazer, we tried to find a role for them in their own episode because that just seemed to make sense. In a couple of cases, they had ideas about who they wanted to use and the suggestions. In most other cases, we just cast it as we would cast anything else. But they were involved. The writers always had. We always talked to them about it. We showed them options. We're like, hey, we're thinking, like it would be really great if we got like Jason Isaacs to play Butcher here. What do you think about that? And we got feedback from like Garth Ennis about that and stuff. So they were very involved through the whole casting process. Yeah.
So you worked on an episode as well, right?
Yeah. Well, so I was the showrunner of the whole series, but then I wrote the last episode.
Yeah. What was your approach for that episode, considering you're probably in the know of what everyone else was doing as well while you were creating yours?
Yeah, so part of what I was trying to do was actually do something that none of the other episodes had done. So I waited to the very end almost to write my episode because I wanted to know what the other 7 were going to be before we got to mine. So I didn't duplicate anybody else, and maybe I could find an area that no one else had done. And no one else had done sort of like an origin story episode. So I wanted to do that. So I started talking with Eric Kripke about it, and he was like, "Yeah, it'd be great to do like a first mission, like Homelander's first mission, maybe with Noir back in the day." And I was like, "That's a great idea. I would love to do that." So I started. So I was talking with him just to make sure I got all the backstory correct and made sure I wasn't doing anything that wasn't canonical with his universe. And then I wrote the episode for him that way, and then got his feedback, and then we produced it. Yeah.
You had said that you were a fan of the boys
Yeah.
before, so did you read all of the comic books leading up to it?
Yes, I have the whole run, Garth's collections. Yeah. So working with him was amazing. Also, I'd read Garth's work. He used to write Judge Dredd and some other stuff back in the day. So I was well familiar with Garth's. Also, he did Preacher and stuff and all things. So I was familiar with Garth's work before, and so it was also a treat to get to work with him on his episode.
Is there anything that surprised you throughout the process of doing the boys and Invincible because they're, like I said, a little bit similar?
That's right. Well, Garth was delightful and the nicest guy to work with. And of course, why shouldn't he be? But like, obviously, you read The Boys and you're like, this is a pretty intense comic book, and the Preacher's pretty intense. But then he's like the nicest guy. So that was a happy surprise. But also, it was a surprise. I don't think any other surprising things. I mean, every day is a little bit of a surprise when you're working on a show like this, but nothing else pops out right away.
Were there anything that was maybe outlandish that you had to say, maybe let's not do that?
Here's the thing: in the boys' world, there's not much, right? Like they push the limits pretty far. I think we didn't say no to much. We got to do almost everything we set out to do. So yeah, that's the nice thing about doing the boys is you're like, should we do this? And then you're like, yeah, we should. Let's just do it.
So you feel pretty good about the reception that it's gotten so far?
I feel happy and lucky and blessed anytime people like any of the work I do. So if it's one person, I'm happy with that. If it's more than that, that's also great. So I'm just happy. So thank you for watching the show and asking questions about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for your
guys.
time.
Yeah.